What's up? What's up? What's up? I hope all of you are doing well. I know all of you are doing well now that you have graced this channel. Before I get started, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to click that little notification bell. And please make sure you have your notifications set so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. So you guys, this is going to be a very touchy and possibly controversial topic. But I feel like this is the time where it needs to be discussed. And I'm going to be discussing why we lose at playing the blame game. So I grew up in Mississippi. Now, Mississippi, still to this day, is considered one of the most racist states in the U.S. My grandmother, she's gone now. My grandmother grew up in Mississippi during a time where racism was prevalent. Mississippi during the 30s, 40s, 50s, in the 1920s. My grandmother was born in 1929. So just imagine what she's seen. Mississippi now is I grew up on a coastal city. So the Mississippi that was is definitely like not the Mississippi that is now. And my grandmother she went through it all. However, my grandmother owned several pieces of real estate. She did not allow the racism of her day to prevent her from living the life that she was meant to live. My grandmother, up until she got sick, volunteered. There were people that were at my grandmother's funeral that was well-respected people in the community that spoke of her very highly. My grandmother, she was a real warrior. My grandmother rarely went to church because she believed that there was no way that we should be worshiping a man who didn't look like us on a cross. She did not believe in that. My grandmother told me stories of how when she was a waitress, back when she was young, back in the 30s and the 40s, how she was not going to get paid by her employer because a white man disrespected her. And her boss told her that if she didn't do what that man told her, that she was going to get fired. And she said, well, you can fire me, but you're going to pay me today. She pulled a knife out on that man. Something that could have cost her her life because she wanted to stand up for herself. She refused to allow a person to mistreat her because of the color of her skin. You were going to feel her wrath. That's just the type of person my grandmother was. And she lived and she died in her truth. I never once heard her tell me that because of what she went through, it caused her not to be successful. My grandmother had property. And me and my brothers and sisters grew up living on a property that she owned and that she put me and my brother. We're on the deeds to that property. My grandmother, who grew up in the South, in Mississippi, that is still considered one of the most racist states in the United States, never, ever, ever blamed the systematic, racist, systematic supremacy, white supremacy, as the catalyst to why she could not succeed. My grandmother raised 9 children, and all of them had property that she passed down to them. I wanted to give you guys some statistic. I wrote this down in my little diary because I'm looking at the global events, and I'm looking at let me backtrack. I'm going to backtrack. A few days ago, I went on my Instagram Live, and I posed the question, did you grow up with or without your fathers? I posed this question because we're approaching Father's Day and everything. So I wanted to ask that question because I wanted to see the impact of what fatherless homes, if people grew up with or without fathers, how did that impact them? And what lessons did they learn if they grew up with or without their fathers? And I shared my story, and I broke down crying because the fact that my father lived 4 houses down from me, and we did not have a relationship because of his ill will towards my mother, and my mother also, did not love my father. That damaged me as a child. And as a result of me not having my father in my life, I made some very poor choices. Now, all of this is going to tie in. All of this is going to tie in from my grandmother to me going on live, talking about my father. All of this is going to make sense as it relates to the victim mentality. But I wanted to give you a statistic from the former president, Barack Obama. Now, I didn't say this, okay? I didn't say it. So, removing fathers from the home, or not having a father, you are 20 times more likely to go to prison, 9 times more likely to lead a life of crime, and 6 times more likely to live a life of poverty. So, what are the main issues facing the melanated community? Prison, crime, and poverty. If 74% of the households in this nation, in Black America, if 74% of the households are without fathers in the home, then what Barack Obama said holds credence as to why we are more likely to live a life of crime, to go to prison, and to live in poverty. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it's because of, systematic racism, systematic white supremacy. Again, this is why I have to revert you back to, uh, you know, the times of segregation. Because even during those times, families, it was what, 25% during segregation? 25% of families, black families, were without fathers. Now, the policies that came into play during the 60s to end poverty allowed women to marry the system, and it also allowed men to abandon their responsibilities. So this blame game of, well, black women chose wicked welfare and that's why the man ain't at home, you have to understand that you also abandon your responsibility. I've seen where there was a special on CBS, and there was a man who said, hey, the ladies don't like the protection, so, I spread my seed. And when you abandon your responsibility, what is the woman supposed to do? So the blame game causes the both of us to lose because we're both accountable. We're both accountable. And so this quarrel, this internal quarrel that we're having, where we're either blaming each other or blaming the system, continues to make us victims of our own circumstances. Barack Obama gave you the reason as to why we live a life of crime. Fatherhood is important. Having a male in the household is important. Because I did not have a male. I can only speak for myself. Because I didn't have a male in my household. I did not make the right decision in mate selection. Because even an animal who lives on basic instinct requires provision and protection. That male has to outwardly do something. Sometimes he has to fight to the death of another male to even be able to mate with that female. These are animals we're talking about. I made poor choices in men because I did not have my father in my life. That is the reality. And I take full responsibility for that. When my son went to jail, according to Barack Obama, statistically he was going to do that because he in turn grew up without his father. I made the poor decision in mate selection. I don't blame anybody. I accept full responsibility. And when my son went to jail, he wanted to use the fact that he was going to an all-white school and that school was racist as the catalyst to why he made the choice to bring drugs to school and to get expelled. And I refused to allow him to do that because his choices led him. And my choice of not making the proper mate selection and him growing up without his father led him to a statistic So when I implanted that in his mind after he got out, thankfully, because my son was a very hardworking student, the state of Texas. He was in Texas at the time. He was, actually he was living with his father's side of the family, his father, but the relationship was so volatile that, he just, it just didn't work out for him. But to make a long story short, from that, he turned his life around. He came home to me and he turned his life around. He realized that he has the power to change his life. And when he did that, he went from being in jail and expelled from school to graduating and then going on to college. And it all had to do with him shifting his mindset from being a victim to being a victor. No longer blaming outside sources. So as a mother, I went to my sons, both of my sons, and I apologized to them for not giving them the best chances at life, because I robbed them of stability. Now I can only take responsibility for my part. That's it. My youngest son told me that there'll be times where he would just be angry. He has this deep-seated anger in him. And single mothers, you don't understand. You get on social media and you proud, oh, I'm doing it all on my own, but your children have anger on the inside of them that you'll never know. And as a woman, it takes a man to calm the anger of a child down. It takes their discipline, their sternness. This is not to say that single parents cannot raise productive children. I have a productive son who has an extensive library, who has a perfect credit score, and he has almost $6,000 to $7,000 in liquidity. A responsible human being. But it did not prevent him from being a statistic. And we got to start getting real about the situations that we put ourselves into. We have to start getting real. We have to start being accountable for our actions. Everything that I have done, every choice that I have made in my life were choices that I made that stemmed from my family upbringing. And the breakdown of family structure is what's causing a lot of what's going on today in our communities. Let's stop pretending like it's something else and stop bashing people for for bringing up the truth. It's very hard to solve a problem when you're constantly turning your back away from the real issues that are facing us. It's hard. And I understand that it's difficult because I live that life. I live the life of I'm angry at the system. I'm angry at these people. I'm angry at that person. I'm angry at this group of people because, they have the advantage. All of that hate. And you know what was going on? Deep down inside, I was hurting because I grew up without having a family structure. I did not deal with the issues of being raped. And so when I would hear stories about my ancestors being raped by white men, faceless white men that I'll never know, I was angered by that. But I didn't even deal with the rapes, the half a dozen rapes that happened to me from men that look like me. And I had to heal and forgive in love. And this is what I am encouraging all of us to do, is to sit down. Instead of marching out there in the streets, march to your dinner table. March to your dad's living room. March to that uncle who molested you. And say, we need to talk. March into your mother's room, or when your mother gets off work, and say, Mom, what happened between you and my father? I need to know. Let's start having these conversations to heal. You deserve that. I deserved it. I have the best relationship now with my mother. The best relationship I've ever had. Because when I was able to realize what she went through, it gave me empathy. I didn't realize all the pain my mother went through, because I was so hurt that the relationship that her and I had was so volatile that we didn't speak for years because of how I was treated. I was ignored. I mean, it was bad. Anybody who knows me, who knows how I grew up, they know I'm not lying about this. These are facts. I made a vow to my children that I would not raise them the way that I was raised. But guess what I did? I raised them the same way I was raised, without a father in the home, because I wanted to be so much different from my mother. But I couldn't be, because I was continuing a cycle. And because I didn't heal, I repeated that same cycle. This is what is going on in our communities. I'm going to leave you with this. Tupac Shakur said that he knew that if he had a father in his life, he would not have been so angry, and he would have had more self-confidence. This is coming from one of the best rappers, in the history of the music industry, admitting that he didn't even have self-confidence growing up because of his father, the absence of a father. It is important. And Barack Obama said it. The statistics show it. And if we are afraid to admit it, we will continue to see ourselves being victimized. So I am going to go ahead and end this video. I know it's probably going to be controversial. I know I'm going to get some backlash, and like I said, that's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and leave you for now. I'll be holding on to your love. Let's start having these honest conversations. Love you guys. Bye.